Raditu billahi rabban. Raditu means from rada. Rada means to be content and pleased with. And so he would say, Raditu billahi rabban. I am pleased with Allah as my Lord. Wa bil Islami dinan, with Islam as my religion. Wa bi Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam nabiyan, and with Muhammad sallam as our prophet. And we would say the same thing therefore in the evening, three times. Our topic today, inshallah, concerns this precise area of rida, to have a state of being a state of contentment with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last week it was that we did a 2-week session on as-sabr, of patience. And we went through sabr as habs al-nafs, as an imprisonment of the soul, the self. We looked quite deeply into Surah Yusuf and the way that Yusuf alayhi salam was tested by Allah, number one, bil makarih, with difficulties, hardship in being thrown down the well. And the same thing repeats itself when Yusuf alayhi salam is in the same enclosed, tight, restricted, suffocated space of a prison cell. But in the middle of them is where Yusuf was tested the worst, and that is when he was tested in remaining obedient to Allah and not disobeying Allah. When he was entrapped by Zulaykha in the room, and Allah says, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, and she locked all the doors, double locked, triple locked the doors, so he couldn't escape. And then it was Yusuf alayhi salam's response as a manifestation of his sabr when he said, number one, ma'adallah. Number one is ma'adallah, that you recognize that if I'm going to sin, it's an initial transgression against Allah, even if the sin is against another human being. The first thing the Muslim remembers, it's a sin and transgression against Allah before the human being itself. Number two, innahu Rabbi, he is my Lord, meaning innahu Sayyidi, he is my master, the slave, the master of Yusuf and the husband of Zulaykha. And then number three, ahsana mathwai, he's been good to me. Why would I show indiscretion and do such a sin against his wife? Ahsana mathwai is very interesting because Allah always appeals to the greatest and highest moral standard of conduct for every Muslim. Right? Even in the most difficult predicaments, Allah has kind of outlined for the Muslim Ummah the most outstanding, like the gold standard of human conduct. And that's like ahsan min ihsan, from the excellence, right? So when he's saying ahsan mathwai, he's shown me excellence. Allah in the Quran says, like they said to Qarun, wa ahsin kama ahsan Allahu ilayk. You show excellence the way Allah showed you excellence. That's to therefore be a reciprocating of ihsan. Even if others show you excellence, your job is to therefore manifest a state of excellence unto others. Then he says, Allah doesn't give success, falah, victory, success to those who are zalimeen, wrongdoers. Therefore that's an act of zulm, an injustice, transgression against who? Against the wife, and against the husband, and at the top of it against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore to maintain sabr, to have habs al-nafs, volume up, the ladies asking for the sound. How do we do that? Do you know how to do that? With a calamity, a difficulty, hardship, disaster, trial, test, and he's patient, that's good for him. And if he's with asabatu sarra, shakara, fakana kana lahu. And if he's given like a blessing, a ni'mah in his life, and he's grateful, that's also good for him. But what about the one who can be patient? Not only when difficulty strikes him, but in all times. There is even a necessity of being patient when a good thing comes his way. Why do you have to be patient when you have a blessing? How could that even work? Isn't that we just being patient when hardship? What about being patient when you have a blessing in your life? Or is it only if you be grateful? Yeah. It's like Sulaiman alayhi salam. Remember, Sulaiman alayhi salam, Allah gave him, the wind. وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحَ عَاصِفًا. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he could hear the ants. فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِنْ قَوْلِهَا. He heard the sound of the talking of the ants. He had the birds. All of this was in his army, right? وَحُشِرَ سُلَيْمَانَ جُنُودُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ وَالطَّيْرِ. humans, jinn and birds, all in his army, everything. Sulaiman, Allah sent the jinn to get the throne of Bilqis in the blink of an eye. And what did he say? هذا من فضل ربي ليبلوني أأشكر أم أكفر. He says, now this is all a test from my Lord. That means even the blessing when it comes, it's a test from Allah. Would I be grateful or would I be ungrateful? Right? So a person therefore could become self-consumed if he receives a blessing. Like you can get a blessing and you think, that's fine. As if you don't even notice the blessing that came from Allah. And then you get another one. And then another one. At that point you have to demonstrate two things. One is to be patient in obeying Allah, because the blessing could be an easy distraction to take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then secondly, to be grateful that Allah gave you that blessing. So our topic today, this is verse number 9 of Imam Sa'di's poem. It's our 10th or 11th week because we had one or two introductory sessions. And this is of course Imam Sa'di's poem, As-Sayyid ila-Allah wa Dar al-Akhirah, the journeying to Allah and home of hereafter, with his brief commentary on Azuratul Fakhirah, the exquisite pearl. You will find some connections between today and what we did in the last 2 weeks, because they're on a similar theme, but this one is more profound, I think, because it's on a session of not just sabr. Because you could be patient, but you could be not pleased. Doesn't mean that all the time when we're patient, we're happy with the situation. Because if you're patient, that means, okay, you're not rebelling against yourself. You won't say anything bad against Allah. You're being patient. But it doesn't mean all the time you're happy and pleased. It's very rare, in fact, you're going to be pleased with the situation, isn't it? Yeah, you're pleased with a happy situation. But this is a section about being in a state of contentment, even if you find yourself in difficulty. That's a big thing for us to practice. Big thing for us to practice. And so it says, نزلوا بمنزلة الرضا فهم بها قد أصبحوا في جنة وأمان. نزلوا بمنزلة الرضا فهم بها قد أصبحوا في جنة وأمان. They arrive at the station of contentment, ultimately reaching the garden and safety. They arrive at the station of contentment, ultimately reaching the garden and safety. He says the station of contentment, rida, is loftier than the station of patience. It is bigger. It is higher. To be in a state of contentment at the decree of Allah, because that means you're pleased with Allah's decision making, then to be patient in Allah's decree but upset about it. We discussed, I think last week there was a bit about al-hasad, the Jummah khutbah on envy. And the poet said, أَلَا قُلْ لِمَنْ بَاتَ لِي حَاسِدًا أَتَدْرِي أَلَا مَنْ أَسَأْتَ الْأَدَبِ أسأت على الله في حكمه بأنك لم ترضى لي ما وهبي. Tarda is from rida. He says, ألا قول, say to the one who is envying, do you know who it is that you're sinning against? You're sinning against Allah because you're not pleased with what Allah gave me. Isn't it? Because if Allah is Al-Wahhab, Al-Mun'im, Al-Fa'al, Al-Razzaq, Allah is giving, then if Allah gave to somebody, why are you happy with Allah gave them? Why would you be envying them and wanting to be taken away from them if Allah gave it to them? Isn't it? To be pleased with therefore Allah's decree, Allah's decision making. Therefore that is a loftier, a higher station than patience. For patience is restraining the soul, habs and nafs, against what it finds disdainful, although an opposing desire still remains within it. So even if you're being patient, like you're holding back and you're not going to say anything, do anything, still, he says, there is an opposing desire, opposition in the soul. You still feel, very terrible about the whole thing. Contentment, on the other hand, melts away this opposing desire, causes satisfaction with Allah, and brings about tranquility and expanse of the breath. Very, very amazing if you think of it. Do you know the story of Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah? He says there was a man who was in the desert, in the desert. And this is a man who had leprosy, skin disease. He was wasted away, it says, wasted away. And he's lying on the floor in the desert with leprosy, and he is, like that, and he has nothing. He has no family, no house, children, nothing, by himself. And so a man, rides past in his horse, and he hears the man on the floor saying, Alhamdulillah ala ni'mihi. Praise be to Allah for His blessings. And he's repeating, praise be to Allah for His blessings. The man on the horse said to him, وَأَيْ شَيْءٍ بَقِيَ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ النِّعْمَةِ تَحْمَدُ اللَّهَ عَلَيْهَا. أَيْ شَيْءٍ, what thing remains with you of blessings that you would want to thank Allah for? What is it? Nothing. Why are you even bothering wasting your breath? That's what he's saying to him. You know what he said? He said to him, إِذْمِي بِبَصَّرِكَ إِلَى أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ. Turn around and look to the people of the city. فَانظُرْ إِلَى كَثْرَتِهَا. And look to see how many people of the city there are. He said, أَوَلَا أَحْمَدُ اللَّهِ. Should I not praise Allah? That out of all those people, Allah chose just to test me. How believers can find their way into Iman. Part of it is cognitive. We can think our way into depression, like becoming panicky, and you can think your way into contentment. I saw a video yesterday, from, it's a charity, Syria for charity, something like that. Maybe I've seen this before, I couldn't remember, but I saw it again anyway after many years. And this is about, this woman is interviewing children, orphan children. She's interviewing them, and she asked them, if you could say anything to your father, what would you say? Obviously they don't have any fathers. And she said, so what would you say to your father? What do you want to say to your fathers? Small, must be like 4, 5, 6 like that, And so one of them said, it was very hard to watch. One of them says, he says, Kifak ya baba, Kifak, Shubamek, Shuk Barak, how's it going? How are you? How's it going? And then of course his face changed because he must realize what we're talking about. No one's going to hear anything. And she asked one of them, what would you say? She said, and this boy, his face was disfigured. Consequence of war, his face was disfigured, and he's saying to his father, he says, I need you to give me a toy. I need you to give me a toy. And then she says to him, what toy do you want? He says, I need you to give me a car to play with, And I really felt, subhanAllah, I thought, subhanAllah, look at the situation, circumstances that come upon the people, and how they're forced in the situations to cope with the worst human conditions you could possibly imagine. And this is a big reflection for all of us. So he says, this is how it works. So therefore, you could have rida, contentment, but what it does is it melts away the opposing desire, causes satisfaction with Allah, and brings about tranquility and expands other. Always find this. Always remind us that whenever you find yourself in a difficulty, and it's something that is out of your control, because it doesn't mean if something's in your control, but it's not a good thing that's happened, it doesn't mean that you kind of remain there and live in the despair. No. Allah has given you choice to change your circumstance. That's true, obviously. If it's out of your control, then there has to be a point of reaching a state of contentment. This is what Allah intended. That's why we say, قَدْرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. قَدْرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. It is by the decree of Allah, and whatever Allah wills to do, He does. If you remind yourself of that, it means, why am I agitating? Why am I rebelling against what Allah had already decreed, and I couldn't change Allah's decree? It may even cause delight to be experienced in times of hardship, like a leper. We discussed, just as others experience delight in times of ease. Urwa ibn Zubayr, we say, rahmatullah alayhi, he was too young from Sahaba, but his brothers from Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, Musab ibn Zubayr, and Zubayr ibn Awam, of course, was a father. So, Urwa ibn Zubayr, there was a very famous story of the three of them in the shade of the Kaaba. The three brothers, and Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, later one of the Umayyad Khalifs. And they're all making a wish. And one says, أتمنى أن أملك العراقين. I wish I could rule over like Kufa and Basra, Iraq, and I would rule بالعدل with justice. Other one says, أتمنى أن أملك الحجاز. I would rule over the Arabian Peninsula, I would rule with justice. Al-Malik ibn Marwan says, you know, you guys wish for small things. I want to rule over the whole world, and I'd rule with justice. فسكت Urwa was silent. فالتفت إليه, returned to him, and he said, ماذا تتمنى يا Urwa? What do you wish for Urwa? He says, أتمنى. He said first, sarcastically, he said, بارك الله لكم فيما تمنيتم من أمر دنياكم. First, Allah bless you what you desire from the dunya. He's being sarcastic with a very small boy, you know. He said, أما أنا as for me, أتمنى أن أكون عالما عاملا. I wish I could be like a scholar, learned, and someone who acts on my knowledge. يأخذ الناس عني كتاب ربهم وسنة نبيهم. People will take the book of their Lord from me and the sunnah of their Prophet from me. Right? And he grew up like this. Allah fulfilled he grew up like this. In his later life, he had 4 children. And the Khalif in Damascus invited him to Damascus. He takes his children with him to go to Damascus. And one day, one of his sons is playing with a horse. And the horse kicks his son, and the son dies. The son dies. So Urwa ibn Zubayr, he has to, arrange the funeral, for his son, and he gathers the people, and it's very sad for him, and he arranges the funeral, and he buries his son. In that process, he injures himself, cuts his leg, becomes infected. And even that by itself is an interesting story. It's about how he displayed sabr in the situation of having his leg amputated. They said, if you don't have your leg amputated, then you're going to die. Therefore, you have to get his leg amputated. Now, the point is, at this point, because it's about contentment, some days pass and the villagers all come from the town and they say, we're so sad for you because look, first you lost your son, and then you lost your leg. And then you have a double tragedy here. And he says to them, you see, in Allah, أعطاني أربعة من البنين. Allah gave me 4 children. ثم أخذ منهم واحد, and Allah then took 1. وأبقى لي 3, and Allah left 3. فله الحمد, for that I praise Allah. وأعطاني, and Allah gave me 4 limbs, 2 arms and 2 legs. And Allah took 1, but Allah left 3, for that I praise Allah. And he said, whenever Allah took something from me, Allah always left a lot back for me. Perspective. You see, if I can see it like that, or I cannot see it like that. I can always think about the thing that I've lost, or think about the thing that I've always had, and I still have. It's like seeing the cup half full or seeing it half empty. If I'm seeing the cup always half empty, I'll never realize the cup has always been half full all that time. Isn't it? Right. So this is a key thing for us to remember. And then he says, when the worshippers reach the station, his life is remedied and his eye experiences coolness. It is not easy to always be in that state. It is not easy. But it is about working for us to try and be at that state. To get that point of always being content with Allah's decision making. Whatever Allah intended it. And Allah has His divine wisdom for that. But He's saying it's kind of a solace, a coping mechanism for the believer because his heart finds ease. This is why contentment is called a paradise of this world and a repose for the worshippers. Therefore, to always realize the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Haven't you noticed sometimes in your life things have changed unexpectedly? And you couldn't even realize how it all happened because it happened so fast. Sudden changes in life. Or you realize, I wish I was at that time, during that time, and not in this time because of things have just simply altered. But then you remind yourself of what Allah in the Quran said, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. That these are days Allah alters between the people. Imam al-Rundi, when the Spanish took Al-Andalus from the Muslims, 1492, they took Seville, was one of the first major cities they took. And al-Rundi wrote a poem called The Fall of Seville, Ishbilia. It was in a major place of agriculture and botany and plants and manufacturing of like herbal medicines, plants. And And he begins his poem by saying, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِذَا مَا تَمَّ نُقْصَانٍ فَلَا يُغَرُّ بِالطِّيبِ الْعَيْشِ إِنسَانٍ. لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِذَا مَا تَمَّ نُقْصَانٍ. Everything that reaches its apex, its high point, is bound to have a fault. There's going to have to be something that will then bring that thing down, isn't it? He's saying that nothing remains at its peak. Like you could think about your life, let's say your health, like whenever I don't know when people are supposed to be the most healthy, maybe when they're a bit younger, I know. But you can't always remain at that point, isn't it? Slowly then your body will start kind of, We were in Switzerland, maybe 4 or 5. We did a retreat, a course. We did this poem, in a course in Switzerland, about 4 years ago. And so the brothers there would go on these hiking things, and it's so beautiful. Beautiful places. It's like snow-capped mountains, and it just looks so stunningly beautiful in Switzerland. And everybody was quite young, except there's one elderly man, and he was like in his late 70s, early 80s. And he was older than everybody that was there. But he could walk the longest. Climb the highest, And it was just an amazing thing. So we kind of revisited our whole idea that you have to be always young to be agile, because he was a proof against us, Whoever is content with Allah, Allah is content with him. Whoever is content with simple provisions from Allah, Allah is content with simple actions from him. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, he says that one of the definitions of taqwa is like this. He says, Al-khawfu min al-jaleel, wal-qana'tu bil-qaleel, wal-amlu bil-tanzeel, wal-isti'dad li-yawm al-raheel. This is how we define taqwa. So one of them is to do with this. He says, taqwa of Allah is khawf min al-jaleel, having fear of Allah, the majestic, and wal-qana'tu bil-qaleel, and to be content with the little in life. Because if you're always never content with what Allah gave you, that means that you're never self-content, isn't it? Yeah. And I was just in Nottingham. From Friday I came back this afternoon. We were on the MRDF retreat, which I think that he's not well. Allah give him good health, make Allah everybody. We were at the family retreat, and so there was a thing that happened because there was a shortage of food, at lunchtime, and it became an incident. It was not, everything was beautiful, nobody even complained for a second, but it became an interesting learning lesson. So people are lining up, queuing up for the food, and there's like meat, and then there's vegetables and mash, And if you have vegetables and mash by itself, it's not going to taste the best. Very bland and very cold, And you need the meat dish because that's going to kind of, make you feel full. And so now people can see in the queue, the food is getting less and less and less, the meat. And you can also see the person pouring the food is pouring a less portion. It's showing that maybe they don't have enough left. Until we get to it and there's no meat left. And there's a lot of us without any meat. And then I had a talk that afternoon, my first talk on Saturday, alhamdulillah. And so then I used this story as a starting point. And I said, you see, it's about perspective, because now we can become agitated and say, why didn't I get the meat? Right? If I say, why they got the meat, but I didn't get the meat? Now, of course, there is a logical reasoning behind that, because the meat finished, ran out. So then there wasn't enough supply left for you to have the meat. But the believer tries to always put himself in a situation where he's understanding the divine wisdom of Allah. So, for example, I said, we're the lucky ones who didn't get the meat. Because maybe we're the ones that Allah saved from an illness. How do we got the meat? Maybe we're the ones that Allah wanted to test and therefore reward us for our sabr because we didn't get the meat. Maybe we're the ones that need to learn the lesson more to be content, have contentment in life, because we hadn't learned that lesson as yet. So it's about the way that we think our way into situations, think our way out of situations, right? So Allah is pleased with the one that is content, right? And the one who is content, you'll find, is just more at peace with himself. When you find sometimes, people who have little, small things, but they live such happy lives. And those who have sometimes a lot of things, they live with the unsatisfied, unfulfilled desire of having more and more things, and they're never happy until they have the more things. Our Prophet says, لو كان لابن آدم واديا من ذهب حب أن يكون له واديان. If the son of Adam had a valley of gold, he'd wish for another valley of gold. And you're never going to be content until you have lots of valleys of gold, right? But the point is, in Islam, always learn to be content and say Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah. Allahu Akbar. And when I saw that video, I was telling you of those girls and those boys who were saying, I want the car and I want to say this to my dad, And then you think, SubhanAllah, Allah has given you parents. Or you see people, you don't wake up and see houses destroyed, you don't wake up and think, do I have enough food for the day? And then you think, SubhanAllah, how much more of an obligation upon me, therefore, to be content? And what right do I have as a human being to ever show displeasure at the favors of Allah? What right do we have as human beings if we don't get a small thing, but we're blind to see the big, huge things that Allah has given us? Isn't it? Like our Prophet said, انظروا إلى من أسفل منكم أسفل. Like the one who is low. Look to those who are lower than you, not to those who are higher than you. Because then, فهو أجدر ألا تزدروا نعمة الله. Because then he will undermine Allah's favor upon him. But you look to those who have less, and then you will appreciate Allah's favor on you. Learn contentment. And then he says, so Allah is content with simple actions from Him. The reality behind contentment is, number one, to receive Allah's religious ordinances and His all-embracing decree with an open heart and a cheerful soul, right? Without resentment or indignation. Now, that doesn't mean, let's say, for example, if something has happened and you're able to change it because you see that thing isn't a good thing, then of course you're duty bound to change it, for sure. Let's say, for example, in the marrying, a psychopathic mass murderer, right? You don't say, well, it's qadr of Allah, I have to just wait for my death. Because you don't say it like that. Because if you're marrying a mass murderer, then you have to divorce the mass murderer and marry someone who's, it's not that bad, right? There's obviously not like, you don't put yourself in a situation like that. But in other times, let's say, for example, if you have an illness, let's say you have an illness, okay? Now there's two ways for you to deal with an illness, isn't it? One is you could have an illness, but of course you have to take the medicines and take the doctor's advice and go to the hospital and take your appointments and do all the necessary logical things you have to do. But there is one way you could have an illness and you're full of moaning and groaning and complaining. And you're cursing the world. And you're angry with divine decree. People, they swear at Allah, they swear at God, they swear at themselves, they swear at the doctors and nurses and the beds and the chairs, they swear at everything. Because they can't understand how this has happened to me. Why it happened to me? Why did it happen to me? Why me? Why not somebody else? But the believer, if he realizes, of course we discussed this in our chapter on Sabr, about all the coping mechanisms which help us to realize, number one, ما يصيب المؤمن من نصب ولا وصب ولا هم ولا غم. The believer isn't afflicted in fatigue, in pain, in grief, in hardship, حتى الشوكة يشاك, or even the pricking of a thorn, except Allah forgives his sins by way of it. Even if it was that and nothing else, that would be the biggest thing. If you realize, okay, I'm having pain, illness, but Allah is just forgiving me all of my sins. And number two, Allah says, إِنِّي جَزَيْتُهُمُ الْيَوْمَ بِمَا صَبَرُوا أَنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْفَائِزُونَ. Allah says, today I reward them bima. Allah doesn't say everything that is important. Bima صُومُوا, bima صَلُّوا, قَامُوا. Allah says, bima صَبَرُوا. because of the fact they were patient. You know, in Surah Al-Insan, Allah says something similar. What's the ayah of the Quran? When Allah says, Jannatu wa Harira, the ayah before it.
وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا.
That's it. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةٌ وَحَرِيرًا. That's it. Same, like the previous one. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا. The reward because of their patience is Jannah and Harira, silk and heaven. And Allah is saying again, sabr. So sabr can text to so many things, but the difference now is about, you can say, I'm being patient, but then patient with being content with Allah's decree. Meaning my heart is not rebelling against Allah's divine decision. That I realize Allah's decision is always the best decision. And it could be like, like businessmen, they think about like, you could have like, a loss-win situation, or a win-win, or a loss-loss. Sometimes we think of it like you could have a loss-win. Like you might think, right now, I feel there's a loss. Like we saw, Urwa bin Zubayr, he lost a leg, and it's hard for him to walk, or lost a son, big tragedy, But then if you think of it like a loss-win, like it's a loss now, but it's a win tomorrow. Or it's a loss now, but it's maybe a way for me to become closer to Allah. Or maybe it's a loss now because Allah wanted me to beg Him for help, to make me more religious, anything like that. So we think of it like that, so it could always be in our favor. The reality, okay, so there we have with an open heart and a cheerful soul without resentment or indignation, right? So it's like not resorting to despair. The poet said, الْيَأْسُ يَقْطَعُ أَحْيَانًا بِصَاحِبِهِ لَا تَيْأَسَنَّ فَإِنَّ الصَّانِعَ اللَّهِ. The yes, losing hope sometimes causes a person to kill himself even. لَا تَيْأَسَنَّ فَإِنَّ الصَّانِعَ اللَّهِ. Don't lose hope because the one who is doing things is Allah. إِذَا بَلَوْتَ فَثِقْ بِاللَّهِ وَرَضَّى بِهِ. إِذَا بَلَوْتَ فَثِقْ بِاللَّهِ وَرَضَّى بِهِ. When you're afflicted, remain placing your trust in Allah and be content with His decision. Because the one who is يَكْشِفُ الْبَلْوَ هُوَ اللَّهِ. The one who will remove the calamity is only Allah. So if you're fighting against something that you can't even control, what's the use? Our Prophet on the day of Ta'if, what did he say to Allah? Imagine, he said it's the hardest day of his life, the day of Ta'if. He expected like maybe some relief. After 3 years of the boycott, economic boycott, Khadija dies, radiallahu anha, Abu Talib dies, it's the hardest time. Then goes to Ta'if with a sense of anticipation, maybe they will accept. And look at what they did. Stone him. This went on for miles, he's escaping them, for miles. But then look at how he turns to Allah, look at the degree of contentment Allah's degree. Allahumma إِلَيْكَ أَشْكُو ضَعْفَ قُوَّتِي وَقِلَّةَ حِيلَتِي وَهَوَانِ عَلَى النَّاسِ. Oh Allah. Now this is the point of اضطرار, مضطر. This is when a person sees himself as completely weak, desperate. Oh Allah, إِلَيْكَ أَشْكُو. To you I complain of the weakness of my strength. ضَعْفَ قُوَّتِي. And the weakness and the lack of my resources. And the fact that these people are not listening. But then he says to Allah, Allahumma, إِن لَمْ تَكُنْ بِكَ عَلَيَّ غَضَبْ فَلَا أُبَالِي. And if it is that you're not angry with me, then I don't mind what's happening. This is rida. This is contentment. You see how the perspective now is altered. Because he is seeing the situation in a much bigger, broader light. Everybody will experience some pain in life. The pain could come to you in all different ways. Look at the people who had the earthquake just the other day in Indonesia. And Allah alleviate suffering of all people. But look, unexpected. All of us. They're dancing, raving, the volcano comes, tsunami comes, and they just die. There was a story of a woman, she was standing and there was some kind of a truck, I think, in the slope, and it was ski slope, icy, unexpected. And it just went down, she didn't know it was coming, and it sliced her in half.
In Russia.
In Russia. Unexpected. No one knows. Unexpected. Everybody will experience some point of pain, and you don't know how, but it's everyone. Allah has to test us. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ You will be tested بِشَيْءٍ with something من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات, with something of fear. You'll feel scared, of hunger, I don't have. Loss of life, loss of fruits, produce, your business, your industries. But then Allah says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ Give glad news to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ Those who say, when calamity strikes them, to Allah we belong, and to Allah we return. They are the ones who have blessings from the Lord, and the other ones who are guided. I have a friend in another country, and his child died in very, very tragic circumstances. Very, very, very tragic, very sad circumstances. And so I flew to visit him and attend the funeral over there in that country, and it was kind of one of the, I felt like I understood this topic of rida better by witnessing how those people, that family, dealt with what had faced them. It was a situation that was beyond their control. They couldn't control what happened. But whatever happened, happened. And of course, the loss of anything, loss of a child is a tremendous loss. And they were really, really in that emotional pain. But one thing I noticed is that, so I'm in the house, I'm in the room, and so people are coming in and out to give condolences. And almost everybody is saying the same hadith, I noticed, And this is the hadith, when the woman, her child was dying, or her child had died, and it says, the Prophet says, don't give the woman this advice. Inna lillahi, this is what they're saying. Inna lillahi ma akhad, wa lahu ma a'ta, wa kulli shay'in 'indahu bi ajalin musamma. That's it. Inna lillahi ma akhad. Now, what are you to do? Inna lillahi ma akhad. Whatever Allah took belonged to Allah. And whatever Allah gave belonged to Allah. And everything with Allah is at a set appointed time. Now, it's actually, because our Prophet, he said it like that, explained it like that, it does put things in perspective. If we all realize we don't own ourselves, even our loved ones are not our possessions. Everything belongs to Allah. Our hands, our eyes, our ears, our nose. If you hard a herring, those ears, Allah gave you those ears. They belong to Allah. Those legs, Allah, that you have, they belong to Allah. That heart Allah gave you, it belongs to Allah. Right? So it's Allah's to begin with. And Allah gave it to you as a loan, as a kind of temporary to use for some time, as an aman, as a trust. And if Allah, therefore, if you don't have the same health you had like yesterday, well, it's Allah's anyway. And it makes it, I think, easier for us to deal with life's situations like that. May Allah grant all of us, strength and ease in everything that we face in life. And so again, the whole idea was that following on from the sections we had on sabr, on patience, you can have patience but still have a degree of inner antagonism. You're not fully content with yourself. It becomes harder on you because you're fighting against yourself. But then the highest stage is to have rida, and it is not easy. It is very, very hard, right? But that is the state that is the best state to be in, to be content and pleased with whatever decision Allah made. It happened because Allah intended and willed it to happen. May Allah give us strong hearts, so we can always understand Allah's divine, or understand that Allah done things out of complete divine wisdom. In terms of Allah's decision making, May Allah grant all of us tawfiq. Ameen.
Any questions before we finish quickly?